Hello, everyone. I am here today joined with Kristen. This is our sixth episode of Walking the Path. And for those of you of whom this is your first time joining us, we'll just briefly introduce ourselves, like what we're about and what we most love or what's up for us these days. So Kristen, do you want to talk a little bit about who you are and what you love?
Sure. Thanks, Christine. I'm really happy to be here as always, and I love these Walking the Path episodes that we record. I love the candidness and the vulnerability and the honesty and the truth and wisdom that always seems to come through, and I always seem to learn something myself by the end of our chat. So I would like to just say I'm just a regular person like everyone with incredible potential like we all have, and I'm really starting to tap into that potential, not necessarily on a career level or an academic level or any measurable level, but more on an energetic, vibrational, universal level. And it's a lot of fun. And I've really broadened my own horizons in the last year or two, especially. And I feel like each year that passes by, the awareness that I have and the consciousness and the growth are exponential. And I feel like that's really exciting. And I feel like part of recording these shows with you is to show other people that anyone can achieve greater awareness and greater consciousness, through contemplation and patience and self-care and love and healing. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say right now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Everyone, I'm Christine, and I came from a very academic and performance-based past, and it was really after my degrees where I was prompted through like loss of identity, like my identity as an athlete and as an academic, to really explore who am I and what am I up to, and becoming aware of my values and my preferences and who I would choose to have in my life, and what gifts can I offer, and what gifts can I receive, and how much can I celebrate who and what I am and who and what other people are, and just have been on that exploration of expansion, of becoming more aware and more conscious, and being on this really undefined path, and being comfortable with uncertainty, and comfortable with not knowing, subsequently having the willingness to know everything I require to have ease moving in my life and connecting and engaging with people. And it's such a fascinating path, right? And chosen path to go on, the one that is more undefined, more intuitive, more guided from within rather than by the external cues or prompts, right? Based in what we've been taught or shown how to be or what to do, through parents and teachers and upbringing. So to step into the unknown, which, paradoxically is where that true knowing exists and emerges from. So yeah, it's definitely fascinating. So I know just as we got on here today, one thing that came up was the conversation around purpose. And I think it is such a fascinating one because it can become very narrow, and someone says, what's your purpose? And you're just supposed to know. And if you don't know, and if you can't like say it in 2 sentences, then you're wrong and you'll probably fail. Right? And so you need to get clear and specific. And so for all those people where it's not clear and not specific, there can be this inherent sense of wrongness. We've been so conditioned in the punishment reward system where we're just wrong if we don't know or don't get it, and we're right and deserve to be rewarded if we have it figured out. And so many of us don't. And it's almost like how willing we are to admit what we don't know and what we haven't yet figured out, and kind of be in that open-hearted, surrendered place, which is so uncomfortable from the mental level that is like in the need to know in order to gain love and approval from others. So it's fascinating. So Kristen, what do you have to say on the topic of purpose, or what's been coming forth lately for you in regards to that?
Yeah. Well, it's a bit funny. I find myself coming back to questioning myself about what is my purpose. And I know it was ingrained in me from a very young age. I remember being like 6 years old in brownies and like junior Girl Scouts, and saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a veterinarian because I love animals. And, later on I discovered that it wasn't all about fluffy puppies when you're a veterinarian, and I was quite devastated and quickly decided that wasn't my path. And, but it was and is ingrained in children as soon as they can understand the English language or whatever their indigenous language is. What do you want to be when you grow up? Mommy's this and daddy's that and grandpa is this and grandma is that, and what are you going to be? And I was actually told on a regular basis that I was so smart when I was a kid. I would either be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And, as a kid, I always rolled my eyes and just thought, that's not what I want to be. And I had a lot of pressure, and I was an excellent student in school. I tried really hard. I definitely was an overachiever, and I think people had really high expectations of me. And so I developed these really high expectations of myself, and I put so much pressure on myself. It was just unreal. And probably only in the last 4 to 5 years have I let that pressure go. And I'm 34 years old now. So wow, that's a lot of years of pressure. And I still find, just yesterday, I was sharing with you, and it's kind of how we came up to this topic today. I was just sharing with you that I had a bit of a meltdown yesterday. I had this moment of, it's a new year. What's my purpose this year? Oh my gosh, I have no idea. But is that okay? And, I came to, yes, it is okay for me. And, my partner Tanner said, well, it sounds like you have some old ingrained beliefs that you need to have a defined purpose. And I said, darn right I do. And he said, well, where'd those come from? And I said, every other person in our culture, practically, especially my immediate friends and family growing up. And to this day, I have family members that are like, what are you doing? I don't understand. How are you surviving? How are you making a living? What do you do? What do you do with your time? What do you do with your energy? How are you making money? And I just laugh, and part of me doesn't really know. I'm just seeing myself and allowing this intangible life force to flow through me and offer the gifts that I seem to have to offer. And gosh, it's gotten me to where I am today. And so, I do still question it based on the patterns and the theory of what life is supposed to look like for us in Canada or the United States or a lot of more developed countries. And it's a constant check-in for me to be okay with who I am. And I laughed a little bit too. I said to Tanner, I've been meeting a lot of new people, and they ask me, what do you do? What do you do on Vancouver Island? And I honestly don't know how to answer them. I just say, oh, I do a lot of things. It'd take me a while to tell you all the things that I do, but mostly I just love people, and I listen, and I hold space for people, and I gather people together to share the good times and to share the bad times, and to just be real and vulnerable, and to dive deeper into a space of love and sharing and connection, and that's what my favorite thing to do. I think that's a huge part of my purpose. How about you? What's your feeling and truth about your purpose lately?
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I've really have questions a lot of the beliefs, right? And just different constructs. It's almost like for a while there, I loved just deconstructing everything. And then at some point I went, okay, well, what am I actually constructing? What am I actually creating? I got so good at kind of that doesn't make sense. And what is that? And who does that belong to? And where did I pick that up from? Almost tossing everything out, but then going, okay, I have all this space. What do I want to add to it? And so it's quite amusing, almost getting to the space of total presence and no thought, and going, okay, well, now what, right? Or just ideas of what enlightenment is. But really, we can attain quote unquote enlightenment or elements of what we've defined that to be, and then really go, okay, and I'm here, right, with a body, and what would I like to do or be or show up or engage with. And it's a fascinating journey. And I know purpose has been a point of confusion. I'm not even sure if that how I would look at it, but the energies that come up when I used to go to talk about it are kind of like, because it's almost like I reach into other people's worlds to figure out what they mean, or some sort of like collective agreement. Like, what is our agreement? Like, we're supposed to have it. What is it supposed to be? Certain purposes have more value than other purposes. Certain purposes are more rewarded by other people. Certain purposes are frowned upon. Like, if they're too general, it's, not good enough. You're supposed to get specific. Like, there's all these things floating around. And when I it's almost like having a radio receiver and just tuning into all these different stations and being like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, look at the thoughts and feelings here. Look at the thoughts and feelings here. Look at all these agreements. And so the willingness to question and ask, and even with someone who's asking a question, or, just through making conversation, even the way they ask questions is reflective of their beliefs that they carry, right? Like, how do you keep yourself busy, right? If someone asks that type of question, then the person who's asking the question values being busy, right? Or values occupying their time with something, and maybe is resisting boredom. So, I mean, for me, in terms of purpose, if anything, it would be to have more clarity, more ease, and more freedom, like a sense of knowing what's true, what's possible, really living in that question, going beyond the definitions or the finite ways of viewing life to that infinite space, which can be so uncomfortable. And yet also, when we become more familiar with it, it's when our nervous system can actually relax, because we're allowing in support from all directions, right? Rather than saying, I am the one to figure out my life purpose and to deliver what I'm here to do, no one get in my way. I'm busy living my purpose, right? And we're kind of going, okay, wait a second. In this like kind of super hyper individualized reality, right? Where everyone is on their own path, doing their own thing. And we are often exploring beyond the individual separate existence into who are we, right? And what are we being and doing here? And that's sometimes where it can get confusing with purpose if we're too caught on the I identity, because with all this personal growth and spirituality and awareness of oneness and consciousness, that I identity starts to break apart, right? It is really more of a collective we. Like, what are we creating? Bringing in more harmony, more love, more unity, deeper relating, the willingness to feel, like all of that really goes beyond the separate self. But yet the art is to include the separate self or the body in the, bigger practice of like being in kind of in that oneness consciousness space.
Awesome. I love the way you are able to express things. It just makes so much sense to me. And there's a lot of truth in what you just said. Yeah. And, I think a big part connecting to what you just shared, for me, a huge step in my questioning my own purpose has been and still is letting go of the idea that what I'm doing with my time and energy and my life is anyone else's business. And to let go of caring what other people think about me or say about me or ask me or tell me. And that's a really tough one for a lot of people, because, we all care what our parents think and our siblings think and our partners think and our friends think and our greater community thinks. And, no one wants to be talked about or, judged. And so I think that's been an ongoing practice for me. And, it was something I shared with my partner yesterday when we were talking about this. I just said, I quite frankly don't really care anymore what anyone thinks. And he laughed, goes, yeah, that's quite apparent. And I was like, really? Awesome. Yay, it's apparent. And so I feel like I've worked really hard to not care. And because really my life is about me. As long as I'm not hurting or harming others, who cares what other people think about what I'm doing, And it feels really good to say that. And so I've found that when I've let go of that need to be doing something just so that I don't look like a weirdo to society and to my friends and community and family, as soon as I've decided to let go each time I've done that, the most incredible opportunities have come into my life. You know, things like being asked to teach workshops or give public talks or, you know, help people in need in ways that I would never have imagined I would be participating in. Gosh, it's just expanded my world infinitely, and it continues to do that. And even right now in my present life, in the beginning of 2017, I'm doing things that I didn't think I would be doing. But, you know, I really feel like I've been the person that's been chosen to be asked to participate in these particular things. You know, and I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I haven't had one in a while. And the last time I did, I was running my own retail business, and it was fun at first until it wasn't fun anymore. And I felt like a prisoner, and I felt trapped, and I felt obligated. And then I started feeling guilty about why I was feeling that way. And it just got so exhausting. And then my physical and mental health went really, really quickly downhill until I decided to be brave enough to walk away and say, okay, I'm done here. Someone else can do this now. And my life has changed incredibly for the better since then. And that was in 2012. So I've had almost 4 years now of this sometimes frightening, but mostly really exciting roller coaster journey ride of choose your own adventure. And it's been pretty risky at times, but it's been so incredible. And I would just like to encourage other people to take those leaps that their heart's been telling them to take, you know, and don't be careless. You know, you have to sometimes put some steps and some procedures in place before you take those leaps. But on the other side of that scary valley is like this incredible sunshiny mountain of infinite possibilities. And yeah, I'm still exploring that mountain range of infinite possibility. And some days I wake up and go, what am I doing? But mostly I'm so happy and so at peace with the choices that I continue to make.
I love it. Yeah, and that's the art. One phase in the adventure is that willingness to not care about people's judgments, expectations, projections onto you, what they think and feel based on what they're not willing to choose or change, right? They're going to judge everything in you that they're not willing to choose or change, that you're choosing to change. So the art is to give yourself the space to go on your path, right? Ultimately, from a higher perspective, from the oneness and consciousness of all things, we desire that communion and that being and that deep caring and generosity and receptivity and all of that. But part of the path is that, you know, that some people would name as the solo part of the journey. It's where you leave that familiar space where people are holding you in a role and expecting things of you. You know your place, you know your job, you know what you're supposed to be doing, and just don't let people down, and everything will be okay, and you'll be happy in the end, but usually not during any of that. Right? And at some point, you know, we'll wake up in our own journey through, you know, health crisis, or just through this isn't enough, or depression, or whatever is our kind of catalyst to question and wake up from that. And then there is often that phase of the willingness to be alone or be on your own or be without support, because if your whole group around you has been built in a certain way, then this choice to expand and question and grow and not know who you are or what you're doing and walk that path of uncertainty does trigger all those people, because they're not willing to do that themselves. But yet at some point in the journey, what I love, and I feel like the phase many of us are coming into, is we've done that piece of really walking alone and being bold, and the willingness not to care about other people's judgments and thoughts and feelings in regards to our choices, so that we can keep moving and keep expanding, keep choosing and keep surrendering and keep allowing. And then we come into the phase where we meet new beings on our path, right? Who are like, oh, you're here too. Like, oh, you chose to leap too and jump off the cliff and hope you had wings, and, you know, and all those things, and are been going with the flow, or not knowing week to week, month to month, what it will look like, you know, having things in place or scheduled when we do, but sometimes not, right? And allowing it to appear, allowing the work to appear and the money to appear and all that. It's so undefined, and it's so threatening to all of those who are maintaining what they've defined as normal or the way it's supposed to be. and then are trying to get everyone to maintain with them, or else what's going to happen, right? And where we're at is so much of that solidity is that foundation, right? Based in fear, very little change, maintenance, do what you're supposed to do, don't question. It's breaking apart, right? There's just greater consciousness on the planet going, hey, like, come out and play, come into the light, right? And more people are really, they can't ignore the level of like, that kind of low level depression or anxiety or boredom. Like they can't ignore this call for something different. But yet in terms of the timing of it all, I mean, there's no prize for rushing it. There's no prize for, jumping and becoming conscious tomorrow. Like, it's not like you'll get to this top of the mountain and you're like showered with gold and then you're in, bliss and ecstasy for all eternity. It is truly walking the path. And that's the art, especially those of us who've been brought up in very performance oriented or pressure oriented environments. We think the faster, the better, right? The more we dive in and the faster we dive in, the better will be. And in this case, it's more of a dance. And if anything, allowing it to be slow at times, or allowing it to be like, wow, I don't seem to be moving at all, or really deepening my practice, or coming into more love at all. I seem to be kind of in a void space. And then new impetus for creation comes in through that void space. So I guess if anything, if I were to deliver a message, it would just be to go at your own rate and pace in regards to this change in the way of being and showing up in the world, right? Letting go of what may have been defined as the purpose or the reason for being here, and just getting curious, and even coming to the space where just being is enough, right? You very like waking up and being, like just the very act of like being present as you is enough. And then everything can be added onto that. Because if being you was your purpose, then you would be fulfilling it every hour, every moment of every day, whether you're awake or asleep. And then you can just add to that, right? Because if we are in that purpose, if it was like, oh wow, I'm totally fulfilling my purpose of being, and then we just add love to that, add creativity to that, add expression to that, add, partnerships to that, add money to that, add all these things. So all those things can be added. But if we don't have our purpose as this thing way out there, that's one specific thing that you probably aren't doing, then we won't be in judgment of ourselves anymore.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I think once people take that leap that you're talking about, and they get to whatever end of the rope scenario happens, which is usually what is required for someone to finally take the leap, because staying in the familiar, even if you're not enjoying it, it seems really easy because it's familiar. It's like, do I stay on this road that I know is going to take me to where I want to go, or should I try some of these back roads? No, I'll just stay on the main highway. It's easier. But the back roads are winding and full of surprises, and you might stumble upon some really incredible opportunities. And my mother-in-law and I came up, I don't even know how this came to be, but I would say this was probably 5 years ago. We came up with these two terms of following your intuition. And we talked about how life and the universe can give us these breadcrumbs. It's a little bit fairy tale-ish. Follow the breadcrumbs. Follow the breadcrumbs of your intuition. The universe is always placing little breadcrumbs, sometimes whole loaves of bread right in front of us for us to pick up and go, oh yeah, oh, there's another one, there's another one. But something else we've noticed is that the universe can also dangle carrots in front of us and try to test our willpower and our intuition and our inner guidance to say, oh, here's this thing, is maybe this is the thing you want. And then you have to be able to recognize, is this a breadcrumb that's leading me toward my higher purpose and my divine self and my higher good and greater consciousness, or is this just a carrot that's going to pull me back toward that familiar highway? And so we started using those terms for years now, and it's been really fun. And so sometimes in conversation, when people aren't necessarily using this type of language, I'll go, wow, that sounds like quite a bread. Maybe you should follow that breadcrumb. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should. And so, yeah, I just like to throw those throw those ideas out there because it kind of makes it fun.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the breadcrumb being kind of like, ooh, there's nourishment there, or there's like an expansion there, or there's a lightness in that. And, we learn kind of our own ways of receiving information, and whereas the carrot is typically more like the answer, right? If you do this, it'll all be perfect and work out, right? And that certainty, it gives a, well, here's the thing, and you just show up and do that thing and you'll be good. Like, it's kind of a answer. And so
it's like
to
the emergency exit.
Yeah, so for the version of us that's been conditioned based on fear and based in fear and just desire answer, and we don't feel safe or loved or any of that, then we're just like, I just want the carrot. I just want the thing that will be certain, and then I don't have to face fear. And in this other path, it's like you get to face and release all this fear, all the fear that you've been conditioned with, or to function with, or believe you need to have, or whatever, until we can truly be the presence of love beyond fear. And but the art of that living is, yes, you will face the fear. Yes, you will face suppressed anger, or you will face, sadness or grief on this path. This one, you may not have to face any of it, but you'll be in this like numbed sort of state, right? Where there really isn't a lot of creative flow. So it's just, and it's not an either or, and it's not like this undefined path is what you should be doing and this other way is wrong. It's just in our own time, in our own way, we just wake up, and at some point we just begin to choose this breadcrumb path, and then you can't really go back to the dangling carrot, because it's, it's not, you'll never be nourished from it, and you'll never actually get to eat the carrot. It'll always be just out of reach. In the retirement, then you can travel, then you can have freedom, then you can, and it's always just like, not quite. Whereas this one is actually the path of receiving nourishment and love now and keep walking.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah. So, I think I'd like to just say, I think a lot of people have that longing inside and that kind of urge to be doing something different than what they're spending their time and energy on every day. And I felt that times in my life. And, I don't regret anything I've ever done as a career path. I have so many skills now that I don't even know what to do with any of them. And I might never use a lot of them again, but I might. And it's funny, I often get offers to do things that I've done in the past that people know I have those skills, and I have to really check in, because for me, that's it. Well, yeah, I didn't know how to do that, and I'm pretty good at it, and I could probably get paid pretty good for that, so maybe I should go do that. And go, hang on a minute. Is that really what my heart is telling me to do? Or asking me to do, maybe not telling, but asking or requesting of me. And so, yeah, I think just one exercise, I might have shared this on another episode of Walking the Path, but I use it all the time. And so I just want to share this idea again. And it really helps to steer me and guide me every day. And it's a simple exercise. And it's called the Things That I Love list. And I think now that I said it out loud, I think I have mentioned it. I just made a brand new one this week for the new year. But about every 2 months, I rewrite my Things That I Love list. Because with the seasons and with the opportunities and the place I'm at on the planet and those factors, new things come in and out of my reality and my awareness, and I realize how much I love certain things. This winter, I've realized how much I love campfires and gathering friends around a campfire. Like, there's just something so beautiful and enjoyable about being under a starry, crisp winter sky with some of my favorite people and warming myself by a fire. It's a very primal, ancient ritual, I think. And so anyway, I don't know how to make a living off of that, but it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what the bigger picture is. All that matters is that we're doing the things that we love, that bring us joy and peace and expand us each day, even if it's just a few small things. And if we pay attention to those things that make us light up and glow brighter, they're going to lead us to the breadcrumb path. Those things are where the breadcrumbs are at. The breadcrumbs aren't in the things that feel like drudgery and pressure and obligation. So in addition to whatever it is that you think your purpose is right now, try to add and expand upon how many things you're doing that you really love each day. And it won't lead you astray, I promise.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's a great exercise for everyone, the What I Love to Do list. So great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for another episode of Walking the Path, exploring our purpose and taking one step at a time, and really knowing that there isn't the one destination that we're meant to get to and nothing else matters. It's really like all of this matters in the way that we choose to allow it to matter, and how much we choose to receive from it and receive the nourishment from our lives now, instead of waiting for the perfect moment to receive the love and nourishment that's already here, right? So thank you, Kristen, for being here today with me. And I'm so grateful for us coming together and just speaking from where we are now, and sharing some of the wisdom we've honed over these years and through this time and from the space of consciousness. So thank you.
And thank you. I really appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode of Walking the Path.